Hi, my friends. This is Lada from astrolada.com, and today I'm here with Vedic Astrologer Levi. Hi, Levi.
Hi, Lara.
Thank you
How
for
are
joining me. You're such a favorite on this channel, and people are asking about you so much because you have this depth of knowledge and this kind of saintly aura and wisdom that is very, I would say, humble but deep. And it's kind of thank you so much for coming here and offering a great topic to talk about, which is to check in the horoscope with
you?
Vedic astrology whether someone is ready for relationships, whether someone is going to have healthy relationships in this lifetime, or at least, if how do I say, this is not about compatibility, because as we talked earlier with you, and you mentioned to me earlier, you said the more you're working with clients, the more you see that compatibility is not the main thing actually between two people that makes relationships work. What makes relationships work is someone who has a horoscope which indicates that they can do healthy relationships. You can put them with the least compatible person and they'll make a good, decent relationship out of it as well, and you can put even the most compatible two people together, but if they both have individual issues with relationships, they can make it very difficult still, isn't it?
Yes, human beings are very complex, right? So I think we decided to talk about not about compatibility, but about pre-compatibility, right? And this is going to show the capacity an individual has to relate in a healthy manner, right? And so we're going to look at some yogas, and yogas are planetary permutations, right, that connect us to a certain result. And this is going to be relative to, well, for a woman, we're going to look at chastity yogas, they're called, right? So it's going to show whether a woman has good capacity to, be feminine and receptive and to relate in a healthy way. And for men, we're going to look at capability yogas, right? So we're going to examine sun and moon to come to some insights. But it's true, yeah, capability, we have to first assess before we can, actually overlay the horoscopes and see whether people are compatible.
Yes, two healthy people, even with not very good compatibility, will relate to each other with respect and will make it work. Two unhealthy people with great compatibility will always react sensitive to each other, and the good compatibility can help a little bit, but still it will be a much more difficult relationships. I want to mention something because these are very easy yogas. Everyone can, you don't need to know even any astrology. Everyone can check them for themselves.
Yes.
And but I want to mention something because many people will notice that they have difficult combinations for relationships, and I want to mention it doesn't mean that you always have horrible relationships, but the first part of life while you're younger, isn't it? It's much more difficult while you're working through those psychological issues, basically. And you learn the hard way, and you probably go through quite a few difficult relationships before you get there. So there is always hope, I don't want to for someone to say, oh, I have Saturn here and Rahu, and that's it, I'm helpless, I'll never have good relationships. But there will, better relationships tend to come later in life when they've worked through those issues, so to speak. And sometimes if you're not conscious, it might never come. But people that are on this channel, they're working on themselves, they're looking for answers, and it all starts with awareness.
Yes, definitely. I also think that, whatever is in the horoscope, like if we're looking at the karma of the person or in any horoscope, it's not going to determine whether you are going to be happy or unhappy. That's one of the, I think, very important if you get into astrology or any, system of divination, and I mean, any system. You have to, take it with a grain of salt, and probably you can learn something. Now, if these yogas are very simple and very deep, because see, the yogas that are given are amongst the oldest available in Vedic astrology, right? So, it's actually, these yogas give the name of the rishis that gave the yogas. So, I mean, in the texts, they give the actual rishi, which is an enlightened sage, right? And so they're very old, they're very simple, and they work really well. And you'll probably find out that it's really working, in your horoscope. Like you will, if you have certain afflictions, then it will have played out, especially as you mentioned in earlier or younger years when you were younger, right? So, but yeah, so astrology is a way to learn about yourself. So why not,
Yeah. Whether your relationship, and you can check if someone is relationship material, should you waste your time for them or no? If they have too many of those difficult yogas, you really have to love them. Let's say this way, to put a lot of effort and patience, and still is no guarantee those people will. They can still leave a bitter taste in your mouth. And if you have those combinations, you really have to love yourself to heal yourself through that, and to allow to push, to allow to evolve over it. Anyway, sorry, I'm gonna try not to interrupt you. People say I interrupt a lot, so I'll be.
No problem. I mean,
Forgive me if I do.
oh no, don't worry about it. No, I think, yeah. Well, in the end, it is, you end up with the person that is good for you at that moment in time, right? I mean, astrology is good, but secondary. It's always a secondary thing. Once you start, looking at compatibility too much, about going over this person, it's just maybe a waste of time, right? Eventually, you end up with someone that you really, attracted to, and you're gonna, spend some time together and hopefully evolve together, right? So I think it's one of the fastest ways to evolve, right? To actually engage in a relationship, because all relationships are difficult, right? Now there is differences, right? And there is some blemishes, like when we look at compatibility, there's like 3 main blemishes. So, and this will make it very hard for the couple to actually make it work, right? And I think, but the important thing here is that, and so as I mentioned, the techniques are very simple, and they're based on the principle of masculine and feminine energy. This is what we're talking about, right? So maybe we can talk a little bit about that. It's see, to have any kind of a relationship, we have to have male and female energy, masculine and feminine energy, and we have to look at how they relate towards another, right? Now, in astrology, the fully masculine planet is the sun, right? And the fully feminine planet is the moon, right? The sun and the moon are the foundation of our self-esteem, we could say. Okay, so we're going to look at for men, we're going to look at the sun. Okay, just look at their self-esteem, or look at their capacity to initiate, to act in a relationship, and to be responsible, to be consistent. And for women, we're going to look at the moon, right? And now, because the sun rules testosterone and the moon rules estrogen. Okay, so when we break it down to the physical level, to the hormonal level, women produce more estrogen and men produce more testosterone, right? So men are at least.
Yes. Just what about if it's two men that are in love? What do we look? Both.
We're not talking about gender so much. We're talking about masculine and feminine energy. It's like compared with a battery, the plus needs to flow to the minus. Otherwise, there's no flow, there's no current, right? There's no relationship. So for any type of relationship, we need a male and female, or a masculine and feminine dynamic, okay? And it doesn't matter if you're homosexual or in a lesbian relationship, it's the same with teacher-student relationships, also parent-child. It's always the plus, the initiating force that flows through the receptive end, right? Which is
so feminine. Even if it's a woman, one might act more through her sun. In a woman-woman relationship, another through her moon. In a male-male relationship, one will act more through his moon and one through his sun.
Exactly. So feminine and masculine energy. Now, a woman can be geared, very masculine, right? Or can be very masculine geared, but so she's probably going to attract a more feminine, receptive guy, right? Now, but as we talked, as we mentioned, women are at least 51% feminine, right? And men are at least 51% masculine. So
Because they have the physical body that's feminine or male,
Yeah.
and
So,
estrogen. Yeah.
so feminine energy needs to receive to feel fulfilled, and to feel fulfilled on an emotional level, on a personal level, in terms and in relationships. So even though a woman can be very masculine, she will still have that feeling to or that need to feel cherished, like to be the receptive end of the stick, right? And so that can create some problems is, it can create some challenges, we could say. So we can find this out in the horoscope, how a person is geared, we could say, right?
Yeah,
So
because if she acts more masculine, she's still a woman.
yes,
She would attract a more feminine guy, and he's not gonna give her that masculine energy she needs. The initiate, the cherishment. She should always have to be the one initiating and moving the relationship forward, and sooner or later this feels frustrating to any woman.
it can feel very frustrating, and for a man it's similar, right? When a man needs to feel a man needs to do something to feel validated. Okay, he wants to be cherished by what he does, right? More. That is masculine energy. It's really typical of masculine energy. Feminine energy is receptive. It needs to feel cherished. It needs to feel loved for who it is, more respected for its feelings and this kind of thing. Now, maybe we should talk a little bit about what Parashara has to say about the sun and the moon in the chapter of describing the planets. He gives an explanation, a description of what masculine energy, what the sun is, because we mentioned the sun is the fully masculine planet, and also he describes the moon, right? And I think that's a very good way of understanding better what masculine and feminine energy actually are, and from there we can work our way through to the yogas. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Is that okay?
Basically, yes. Oh, yeah, yeah. So basically, for women, the moon is more important to see if she can be healthy in relationships. For men, and we're talking about now like man-female relationships. For men, the sun. So men will have to check. If you want to check for a guy, the sun is what is important. That he can be consistent. He can be there for you. He can be the initiator. Has this masculine energy in a healthy way manifested, rather than change his mind, leave you, promise you things, disappear. That's very unmasculine energy. While the woman have to be sensitive, emotionally healthy, and feel loved herself. That's the moon we have to check. Okay.
Yes, definitely. I don't necessarily have to share my screen. I can pull it up here if you want. Just 1 second. Can you still see me?
Yes.
Yeah. So what Parashara has to say about the sun is honey yellow-eyed, right? It's square, radiantly pure, of Pitta nature, intelligent, masculine, with but little hair. So that's the sutra. It's very interesting. And so honey yellow-dyed honey is sweet, right? So masculine energy has an appetite for life. It wants to, take. It sees opportunity in everything. It wants to create something. It wants to do something. But it's yellow. It's honey yellow. So it's sweet. It naturally cherishes and loves. Right. A healthy sun is never going to harm anyone around him or her, because women have a sun as well. So it's, as also Parashara says, radiantly pure. So the sun rules the purifying fire in the body, right? And it's pure, so it's never egocentric. A healthy sun is never egocentric. It never, is going to compensate too much to be validated. It's also square, right? So it means that it's very solid. When it decides to do something, it's going to follow through with that. And it's consistent, right? The sun is consistent. And also what is given here is of Pitta nature, so it's active. It's the fire element. It wants to do something. It's naturally competitive as well. but not again to compensate, but just because it's following its dharma, its natural inspirations. It's naturally competitive, right? So that's a good quality. It's intelligent, so it's all about applying logical intelligence, logic, right? And so it's going to look at things objectively, and it wants to know the facts and then move on with it. It's masculine, so I don't have to explain that. And then with but little hair. So right, this could signify or relate to the fact that hair is just something that we don't really have any control over, right? It grows, you can cut it, whatever. But it kind of symbolizes that a healthy sun it minds its own business, right? It doesn't look further than its own realm, we could say. It's not really it doesn't mind, it minds its own business. That's one of the things that is also important about the sun, right? It's consistent, and so I think that's that's like a nice way of looking at what masculine energy is, I believe, right?
A healthy man will be initiator. He would create things with his creative energy and initiating energy, but he'll not be doing it out to prove himself. He'll be doing it because he feels inspired. He'll not be ego-centered, like a lot of men, like, I want to fight, and because of that. This is not unhealthy energy, masculine energy. A healthy man will not harm others.
No.
It's not like the jungle healthy man is like what's that called? That guy in the jungle. It's basically, it's gonna be successful and creative and inspired, but not just because it wants to win at all price, or because he wants to dominate in some way.
No, the sun is the king, right? So, and the king is noble, and it protects its kingdom, it protects its everything. And so a healthy sun is always very considerate, or is always protecting the weak also. Okay. Right. So
very consistent, you said. The sun is square, so a man who is healthy, when he says something, he would follow through. When he dedicates himself to his family, he'll stick it out to a task, to a goal, to a path.
And follow through, right? So yeah.
And men who change all the time, that's unhealthy masculinity.
Yes, but in reality, most suns are quite afflicted by Saturn, for example. So we're not living in this perfect sun realm, but we get the idea that a healthy sun is all that. And I think if people around you, men around you that have healthy suns, they're very gentle, they cherish, they love, and they are consistent, right? They protect when necessary. They're masculine, they're initiating, and so that's healthy masculine energy. And I think probably most women would agree, right, that this is what they need to feel.
Women have a twisted understanding of what masculinity is. They think it's someone that will, that will fight, and that will, basically shoot guns and drink beer, or kind of be ready to go fight at the first challenge there, with someone else physically. But as you said, the sun is gentle, masculinity.
Yes, it's
so really confident in himself. He doesn't have to prove himself.
No. That's the ideal scenario, right? And that's a healthy sun, and you can, find this out. Yes, I think the last couple of thousand years we have had, people in power with serious afflicted suns, we could say, generally speaking. So I think it's true what you say, that there's a lot of misconception about what healthy masculine energy.
They're not there to, like a noble king, to protect us. They're there to their own ego, to prove themselves, to win at all price, to power hungry. That's exactly the opposite. So you see a lot of people in politics now that are considered very masculine and stuff. They actually have very hurt masculine energy. It's not the right one.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting to go over this, right? What Parashara had to say about this, and
Mhm.
classics have to say about it. I think it's very interesting. Should we go to the moon?
Yes.
Right. So the moon, Parashara says, abounding in vata and kapha, and filled with knowing, is the moon, of round body, auspiciously eyed, of sweet speech, fluctuating and love sick. So abounding in vata and kapha. So let me just talk first about the moon is filled with knowing. So this is the sun is intelligent and the moon is filled with knowing. So the moon is intuitive, right? It knows things intuitively, and so a healthy moon is able to receive what it feels, what is important to its evolution. Okay. Um, it's a round body, so it's kind of flexible. It's not like a square, right? It's flexible and it can
It
move freely.
rolls. It goes.
Also quite fickle, and um, it's auspiciously eyed, means that it always looks, it sees the positive. It has a positive attitude. I think most people don't like it when uh, people start complaining about other people, and it sees the positive. It's auspiciously eyed, is what Parashara says. It's of
So women that all the time gossip and bite at other women and make nasty comments, they have hurt femininity for certain.
yeah, that's definitely a Saturn or or any other malefic hampering that moon. Okay, um, of sweet speech, right? So figures, right? It always it wants to be suited. It does not necessarily wants to hear the facts, like clean cut, dry facts. The sun is a dry planet. It wants to, it's objective and it needs facts and then moves on with it, right? This is typical for masculine energy as well, but feminine energy is much more looking for, you know, emotional fulfillment and soothing, and it wants to soothe itself, right? Um, so it's also fluctuating. So it's not stern, it's flexible, and it's also a little love sick. This is what is also given. So it wants to connect, it wants to bond. It doesn't like to be alone too long, and I think the sick relates to like the moon. It's never really completely fulfilled, right? It's always a little hungry for bonding and
Bonding perfection, yeah. So that's actually healthy femininity to have this need to bond and to be loved. That's a healthy sign. Women that are like, I'm alone, fine, I don't want anyone, that's already kind of unhealthy indications for relationship. That always needs to do everything alone, but
yeah,
women that are more okay.
want to receive and they want to be cherished and feel that
Yeah,
they're
women who always want to do for others but can't receive. They have, because the moon is receptive, as you said, it receives.
yeah
They have problems with relationships already, because when you cannot take your femininity is, so you should train yourself, if you have those unhealthy yoga, to learn to accept, basically. So already, if a woman can't accept, if a woman can't receive from a partner, it will always have to do for others. That's femininity that is disturbed in some way and will affect relationships. If a woman is inflexible and insists that things happen only on her, whatever, only the way she envisions, because the moon, according to ancient astrology, is flexible. It's round, rolls. It's even fickle. She needs to be willing to change her mind and her strong opinions. That's healthier for a woman, for her relationships overall, than being stubborn and that's it. That's how it's going to happen, and there's no other way.
yes. Also, the moon rules DNA, and DNA changes over time, and it makes it creates evolution, right? So in that sense, it's adaptable, it's changeable. The moon is our subjective nature, and it's feminine energy needs to wants to receive. It needs that. It needs to be receptive. It needs to be able to take things in and internalize it. And a good sun in a woman's horoscope will anchor that feeling, right? It will anchor whatever she receives intuitively. Okay.
You mean a good moon?
Yeah, like when the moon is good and the sun is also good in a woman's horoscope, when the sun is good, it's going to anchor that feeling. It's going to anchor whatever she receives, you know, from her moon, from intuition or via intuition more, right? We're talking really like stereotypical here, right? Like pretty clinical, but that's the nature of masculine and feminine energy. So masculine needs to initiate, and feminine energy needs to receive. And so this is going to play out in both men and women. And as you mentioned, like people are different, right? We're all different. We all have different levels of estrogen and testosterone running. So yeah, I think it's very interesting. Now, so having said that, is there something you want to add, Alada, with this?
Oh no, it's fantastic. I think a lot of women will feel kind of irritated by what we're saying because a lot of women prefer to initiate, and a lot of women, would react angry or upset or nag or not have this. What did you say? Positive outlook because of the moon, or
Yeah, auspiciously out. So it looks for the positive. It wants to see the positive in things, right?
yeah, and because feminism now, I think there's a lot of clash because feminism is pushing women towards masculine qualities, and there are great things about feminism, but some sides of it are kind of making women too much as men, and women are having more and more problems because of that. So yeah, well,
Also,
that's a philosophical topic.
so also one thing to consider is that a lot of men have their masculine side suppressed, right? So it doesn't mean that they're not masculine. It just means that, and this we can see in the horoscope, and using these yogas, is it's going to show how difficult it's going to be for them to access that masculine potential. See, because the man can be quite feminine, right? Not really initiating, like kind of laid back, not really caring too much.
Giving mixed signals to the woman.
That's something like that. And not really, and be okay with that. But basically, like deeply, it's always gonna. A man really needs, or a masculine energy, let's put it like this, needs to. It feels good when it's appreciated for what it does. Like, see, if you look at when women are depressed, or men are depressed, for a man it's easier to get out of it because a man changes from outside in, right? So it needs to do something, and then it feels validated because it did something, and then it's easier to get out of some, I'm calling it depression now, but for women it's a little harder, I think, because they change from inside out. So when they're not feeling cherished, not feeling loved, they feel really bad, and they it doesn't seem to work as
Yeah, getting a new boyfriend or a new job is not going to make her feel better.
no, not it's not
first.
has to heal within first, and then and so men can have their masculine side suppressed, and women can have their feminine side suppressed, but doesn't mean that they're not feminine. It just again means that they are having more difficulty to get in contact with that receptivity, with their feelings, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now, if we look at the chastity yogas, okay, and this applies for women, right? In women's horoscope, we're going to look at the moon, right? I'll just shall I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Just 1 second.
So that's for women. Girls, checking your horoscope. How easy do you express this femininity, which will make relationship easier and healthier for you? And if you have chastity yogas, means like not having those blemishes and being very much in touch with the feminine needs, and for such women relationships flow. But if you're missing those chastity yogas, or if they're the difficult ones, what happens is that there's, like Levi said, difficulties in getting in touch with this feminine side which you have, which creates immediately relationship problems.
Yeah, and so if you become aware of it, then things can start changing, right? So it doesn't mean that you have these combinations that your relationship life is ruined or something, but you'll probably recognize what is going on, right? So do you see the chart here, Lada?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the chastity yogas. Okay. So let's start with if the lagna and the moon. So if the ascendant and the moon are in even signs, the woman will be truly feminine in character, form, and appearance. She will possess excellent qualities, be of steadfast character, beautiful, and physically fit. Moreover, well, let's start there first. So if the ascendant and the moon are in even signs, she's going to be more receptive. Okay.
Even signs are the female signs.
The even signs are gentle.
Water and earth signs, yeah.
They're the gentle signs, and it will allow the woman to be a little more, to be more receptive. So I lost my note here. Just 1 second.
So it's super easy. Moon or ascendant in female signs already makes you a bit more healthy in relationships. Because I have them in masculine, so I have a lot of problems. Always had, but
you have a lot of masculine signs.
Everything is in masculine signs. That's why I attract more feminine guys.
Yeah, you're a doer, right?
Yeah. I have to remind myself not to. So you give some respect to the man in your life, and you give him some option to be a leader and to initiate and to do, as you said, the man feels good when he does.
When he does, yeah. So you always attracted more feminine men?
Yes. I feel more attracted even to more feminine. But that's initially what pulls me. But after that, I want them to take, when you're going in a long term, you want them to take this masculine role more. And you have to retreat a little bit consciously from you doing too much and you initiating all the time and imposing your opinions on others and on your partner and allowing them to take initiative.
Right. Okay. So then also, moreover, she will have yet more excellent qualities, be of steadfast virtue, healthy, prosperous, and possessing ornaments, if these are aspected by or with benefic planets. Okay, so if the ascendant and the moon are aspected by benefics, right, and the benefics are Jupiter and Venus, a waxing, waxing moon is a benefic, but and also Mercury, then it's making the situation even better.
So basically, if you have in the ascendant, say Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, or even the moon, it's kind of these are benefics. Or if you have the moon, say with Venus, Mercury, Jupiter.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. That's going to make a woman more receptive and more in touch with her feminine side, so with her feelings, basically. So that's one thing that we need to consider. So the ascendant and the moon in the even signs, the gentle signs, and when they're aspected by benefics, it's even better, right? It's a good chastity yoga. Okay.
And maybe you can show on people how they can see if a planet if moon or ascendant is aspected by those. Does it shows there in Rashi aspects it shows. I think I have it also on my calculator, astrologer.com, the same charts. You can go and check if you can show them there where they can see it.
Oh, that's good. They can check it at your website. That's good. Now we can look at, we need software for this, right? So we're going to look at the ascendant, the influences to the ascendant. In this case, we have a Pisces ascendant, and we're going to look at the aspects here to the first house cusp, right? And here we see that there's 59 of points. This is on a scale of 1 to 60, so it has 59 points positive benefic aspect and 36 malefic aspect. So this is looking good for this ascendant. Okay, this has more benefic influence than malefic influence to it. See, so that's considered a positive thing. Also, we're going to look at the moon and the aspects to the moon, and we see that moon, I don't know if you can see it here, Just put it up.
Called planetary aspects, yeah.
The
I
plan.
have
Yeah,
those
we're using
tables
Saturn.
in the calculator, guys. You can see them just like he's showing.
Great, yeah. So here we see that there's a little more malefic aspect to the moon. We also see a Saturn exalted aspecting this moon here, right? And so there's going to be some self-esteem issues going on here with this moon. It's also in a masculine sign, right? But we have to go over the odd signs as well, right? Because when the moon or the ascendant, when they fall in an odd sign, which are the cruel signs, the masculine signs.
Fire and air signs.
Yes, exactly. Then, it's going to be a little more difficult to access that receptive side, to get in touch with their feelings. Okay.
Yeah, because masculine signs want to act as well rather than receive and consider the intuition.
Mm-hmm. So now we're not only going to look at it in the natal chart, we're also going to look at it in the Trimsamcha chart. Now, I won't go too deeply into this here, but Trimsamcha chart is important in terms of psychology and character to examine. Okay, so I'm going to look at the natal chart, the aspects to the first house and the moon, and also we're going to look at the Trimsamcha chart. Now, gosh, I forgot. I lost my text again here. So let's go a little further. If the ascendant and the moon are in odd signs, she will be masculine in form and bearing and possess male characteristics, but be fickle-minded. If they be with or aspected by malefic planets, she will be without any good qualities, be sinful, vicious, and licentious. Like
They were very extreme in the past. The expression
can be pretty, cruel. But you'll get the idea. So when the ascendant and the moon fall in odd signs, she's, more masculine. Okay, women.
She interacts the people she interviews like I do a lot. This masculine energy.
Yeah. Also, if there's malefics aspecting, then it's going to be more. It's going to be worse situation, we could say, right? If moon and ascendant fall in, it's going to be worse situation, meaning it's going to be more difficult to access that receptivity or that feeling.
Yeah, because Saturn or Mars, you react resentfully or angrily rather than gently, which is a feminine quality.
Yes. So here we have the moon in odd sign, right? And so in a masculine sign and a fire sign here, and we see it's quite as it's aspected by what is Saturn up to 56 out of 60 points and Mars out of 60. So this is a hampered moon, right? This is going to be difficult for this woman to get in touch with what she actually needs. And this is actually, it has played out in this woman's horoscope for sure. Now,
more actually comfortable to put herself in difficult relation. More what's familiar to her, which is the moon, will be more difficult circumstances in relationships than because of the malefic influence.
Yes, it's the moon is the mind, right? It's all happening on a level of mind. So when the moon is aspected by malefics, it's going to be harder for the person to get in touch with their intuition, right? And navigate and follow that intuition, and to attract, it's happening consciously and subconsciously, to attract something that is going to fulfill her on an emotional level in terms of relationships. And so yeah, it's
even if like her intuition might be telling her this is the right guy, and she'll be like, I know he's my soulmate, and goes there and he beats her up or cheats on her. While women with moon well aspected, the intuitions are correct basically when it comes to relationships, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they will have more. They will be more attuned to that, and they will know, right? A healthy moon is not going to do something that it doesn't feel like, right? It's not going to follow through on what it doesn't feel. And if it feels bad, then it's not going to do it. That's what a healthy moon does. An afflicted moon doesn't really know, doesn't really understand, and so has to go into it, right? To understand and to experience it and to grow from it. So it's not a problem if you have these afflictions going on. It's just it just shows that you're going to have a little more, you have more work to do to balance that out, to make your moon a little more healthy or healthier, right?
You get
Now,
yourself in those more painful situations, and you learn from them, hopefully. That's and then recognize that you should say no next time.
yeah, and also any combination in a horoscope is always, there's always gold under it. There's always gold to be mined, right? Any difficult combination. Now, if you see what is it, Moon Saturn stuff going on, right? Or we also know like Venus Moon stuff, or K2 or Saturn Sun, right? Which can be a difficult one. It will create a lot of friction, a lot of problems, but it's always the right combination for you to learn whatever you need to learn, right? Now, sometimes it's, if you're not willing to understand, if you're not willing to learn, right, it's always a difficult thing. But that's one of the great things about astrology. I think it's very practical in it's really showing where we can grow on a psychological level, right? Let's forget about the whole spiritual dimension. It's just really good in terms of psychology and understanding what is really going on a level of mind and emotions. And I think it's very great that we have this concept of like what the ancient literature gives in terms of like, for example, masculine and feminine energy. It seems so simple, but before I got into this, I didn't really understand. And to understand masculine and feminine energy is very important, I think, right? To understand what is going on in your relationship life, because I think we all have difficult relationship lives, right? Some people are blessed, but I think that's only a few, right?
Yeah, and they don't go to astrologers, like Ernst says. If you have a perfect chastity yoga, you're never going to go to astrology to ask about relationships. So we don't see many of those in our clients. Everyone has some issue there.
Mm-hmm. Now, the most important factor, I'm just going to share the screen here, just jumping from one. Oh, sorry. Gosh, I'm having a little. Do you see the chart, Lada?
No, I see myself. No.
Okay, right. Now, the most difficult placement is malefics in the fourth from the ascendant or the fourth from the moon. And the fourth from the moon is going to be more severe, right? So even if you have your moon or ascendant in masculine signs and they're aspected by malefics, right, it's not going to do you much good. But if there's malefics in the fourth from the ascendant or the moon, and in the moon particularly, then that is going to be difficult. That's going to be the worst case scenario, we could say. Okay, because the fourth house is what is below. It is it rules pools and water and our emotions, emotional fulfillment, contentment, peace of mind, right? The fourth house. And when there's malefics, especially Rahu and Saturn are in the fourth from the moon and the ascendant, that's gonna create a lot of confusion, and it will be difficult for a woman to really get in touch with her feminine side, especially Rahu and Saturn. Okay.
Have very pained emotional reactions. I've seen that, and I've seen it in many celebrities as well. But they just react with pain and hurt much more, and emotionally they feel much more unsettled, and that immediately creates problems in relationships, of course.
Yes. So yeah, I think if we look at this horoscope, you can see this. There's Rahu is in the fourth from the moon, and this created a lot of confusion in the first 30 degrees of this 30 years of this person, like in terms of relationships.
She doesn't know what her needs are, basically, for her to feel happy. So she needs to
Yes.
experiment and try, and usually get hurt a lot. And
Get hurt a lot, and also it can play out on so many different levels. But maybe staying too long in a certain relationship that is not healthy, or attracting, just not being clear about what she needs to be fulfilled as a woman, right? And this definitely played out in this woman's horoscope, in this woman's life. If we look at Trimsamsha, we see that Scorpio is an even sign, so the ascendant here is good, right? And then, but the sun is there, which is a malefic, and the sun it can make a person a little stubborn, but it can also make that the woman wants to or needs to prove herself, in order to be validated. Okay, again, in the active, role to compensate for an inner lack. Okay, so that's something also to be aware of and to be cautious of. And
yeah, she takes more masculine solar role of leadership and initiative, to prove herself.
Then here we see the moon in Virgo. It's also an even sign, so we have ascendant and moon in even signs. And we see in the fourth from the moon, we see Venus, which is a benefic, so that's really improving the situation. Venus is a soothing planet, and it's the diplomat, and it's a great benefic. It's the great benefic, so that is really improving this horoscope, like this situation. But we also see Mars in the fourth, and so it is going to make the woman more opinionated, and sometimes she'll choose logic over feeling, okay, over receptivity. And so
what
really,
feels good should choose what the logic over what actually feels good to her.
yes, exactly. That is a lot of, you see a lot of, I see it like when sun is in the first or the fourth, it really wants to, the individual, the person really needs to prove themselves. And when Mars is there, it's like things have to be a certain way. It's very opinionated, and as you mentioned, right, its logic can over run feeling.
Or it has to be my way or the highway. That's it, Mars. I don't accept anything else, and of course that will create problems in a relationship immediately.
Exactly. You can also look at the Navamsha chart, which relates to marriage and your purpose, right? But the Rashi or the natal chart and the Trimsamsha chart are the most important.
And many people will not have Trimsamsha and Navamsha. They're not gonna. But if they want to check the birth chart, it's more than enough. Honestly, if
Definitely.
it doesn't show in the birth chart, it always shows in the birth chart. If a woman has problems, it will show. Just like here we see Rahu is the biggest malefic, the North Node, in the fourth from the moon.
Yeah.
Whitney Houston had that. And that's one combination also that can lead one to addictions as well, because one is emotionally unsettled and doesn't know how to nurture their needs in a healthy way, so they can do kind of thing. But look, she stayed in a relationship with Bobby Brown that was unhealthy for her for so long, and they can be emotionally very excitable, interesting people, because Rahu is this kind of a wild ride planet, so they have wild, almost like they're on a wild emotional ride in this lifetime. Women that have moon conjunct Rahu, or Rahu in the fourth sign from the moon, or Rahu with the fourth in the fourth house from the ascendant. They're always like, there's lots of excitability emotionally around them, but again, they're not in touch with what they really need for themselves from a relationship. So they have to go through, yes, like you said, sorry.
No, definitely. I think you can look at the natal chart if you have the trim sumption. They can check it on your website, right? The trim
I don't
sumption.
have Trim Samsha there. I just have the birth chart.
If they have the software, they can check it, and it can soften the situation. It can improve the situation. It can make it even worse. But it's like you say, if you look at the natal chart, it's gonna give you a good insight. It's gonna give you good you know result. We could say you'll definitely uh, see it happening.
So
Um,
basically, this is very painful, having Saturn, especially. How would you rate them in the North Node Rahu, then Ketu, then the North Node Rahu, then Saturn, then Ketu, then Mars, then the Sun, isn't it?
exactly. Yeah, Rahu and Saturn. Saturn aspecting like Moon is always a self-esteem problem, right? It's like heavy Saturn. Then Mars is, let's narrow it down. It's like being opinionated, maybe too strong, too pushy. And then Sun is more it's not it's a malefic, but it's the least damaging, we could say, or the least intense. But it will make a woman act more like she needs to prove something, and thus disregard her
Achieve something, So women can be more driven to achieve overall. And Ketu, what does Ketu do?
Yeah, Ketu is hiding, right? Hiding feelings. That's also one of the things about feminine energy, is that it always needs to express its first feeling. Right? This is also something that Ernst, teaches, is that if a woman feels sad, right, and she expresses it by anger, then she's really lying to herself. And so Ketu is like a hiding thing. It's the most narrow planet. And the nodes are always very deceptive, right? If you see the sun or the moon conjunct the nodes, it's always, you're not really looking at the person. You're not really knowing what you're looking at, because they're very deceptive. And Ketu is deceptive in the sense that it's very inhibiting, right? It wants to hide things. And if Ketu is in the fourth from the moon or the ascendant, then the woman will have difficulties in expressing her emotions, or even figuring out what she feels. And so, yeah, Ketu can be quite troublesome in the fourth there.
So even a woman, yes, it's again, either she hides how she really feels. She might be feeling hurt, but she's not going to express it. And of course, that will create problem in the relationship. Or she might be even these feelings and what she really needs, the moon, might be kind of, she might be they might be hidden from her what she needs. Okay.
Yes. I think the worst combination is when you have the moon and the ascendant in odd signs, and then you have malefics aspecting, and there's also malefics in the fourth from these places, from moon and ascendant. Then you're gonna, it's gonna be difficult, because probably the woman is going to express her unhappiness, right, on her environment, right? And because she does it, she's gonna feel bad about herself. That's like the worst thing that can happen. And so, yeah, so that's going to be the worst thing, meaning it's going to be the most difficult. If the sun and the ascendant fall in even signs, right, and there's benefics aspecting, or there's even malefics aspecting, but there's some benefics in the fourth from these sun and moon, ascendant and moon, then she can feel depressed or not really receptive, but she's not primarily going to project that onto her environment. She's going to more internally suffer through it.
Okay, so there is some softening there.
There's softening there. But we're talking
when it's directed towards others. I've seen people with difficult planets in the fourth from ascendant, Saturn, Mars, Rahu. They react angry and defensive, and they feel like everyone is there to get them. And it's when you show this in any relationships, business or personal, it aggravates things, of course.
Yeah, exactly. That's not what feminine energy is about, and I think that's probably the most difficult placement. And as we mentioned, yeah, Rahu Saturn. But I know a lot of people with these placements, and they're fine. I mean, but initially it's very difficult, especially as a young woman. Right, first half of the life. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, definitely. And Rahu in the fourth in general, is, especially for a woman, can be very challenging. Um,
And Rahu matures at 42, so things improve then, doesn't it?
Definitely, yeah. If
Relationships will improve.
I think depending on how, yeah, depending on how willing the person is to
Yeah,
deal with it.
that's for certain.
And then you can look at Rahu's dignity also. And Trimsamsha is very interesting chart also too. I mean, I didn't really look at it before at to look at psychology and character also before I came across this technique and Stohan is teaching. So, but it's very interesting to analyze for people who are a little deeper into it.
Yeah,
So
I think the Ernst software has it for free. His website, Kala, no, Light the Vedic. If you want to check the 30th divisional chart, Trim Samsha,
yeah, it's like Fault of the Heavens, you mean?
Vault of Heavens, yeah.
Yeah, they can check it out there for sure. Okay, then should we go over some more charts to kind of illustrate it a little more?
So quickly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So just what is it here? Okay. So let's go to the next chart. I'll pull up the aspects table and the aspects. Okay. Can you see it clearly? Lara, can you still hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, so here we have Scorpio Ascendant. So it's an even sign. The moon is in an even sign, so that's good, right?
Moon in Virgo, Scorpio Ascendant, 2 feminine signs. That's good.
That's good. But we see that now, if we look at the aspects to the first house cusp, there's a lot more malefic aspect to the first house cusp, but that's gonna be a little, more difficult. Then we also see that the moon is conjunct Saturn, right? Whenever moon is conjunct Saturn, it's always low self-esteem issues, right? It's difficult to get in touch with receptivity, with their feminine side. So that's gonna be a little difficult. See, it's the conjunction.
Well, the moon is almost 28 degrees away from Saturn. It's still, as long as they're in the same sign, it still gets affected, yes, according to ancient rules.
Yes, it will. But we also see here that the moon has a lot of like 59 benefic aspect and only 16 malefic. So it is also well supported. You see, even though the conjunction is there, but definitely it will be felt. Okay, so low self-esteem, because a woman needs to feel good, right? And from there she can act and she can create and she feels happy. So especially in, as we mentioned, like younger years, the Saturn moon thing can create some confusion, right?
It is
And that
very painful. Moon, Saturn, it's women like that feel pain.
yes.
And they put themselves in situations that feel painful because they're used to that feeling and
Mm-hmm.
maybe even like they'll put themselves because they naturally feel a bit more down and low self-esteem and pained because Saturn is pain and suffering. They would actually look out relationships that give them pain so they have a reason at least that they're feeling like that. So
Yeah.
they have to consciously work on positive attitude, focusing on positive things and removing themselves from environment, because the moon is environment that is unsupportive, Saturn. Of course, you have to do it consciously. subconsciously they would always be drawn to situations and environments that feel heavier and that confirm to them that their self-worth is less. They confirms that they're not as worthy, or the lack of self-love.
The good thing is that like this combination will amplify things in such a way that they can actually go through it, right?
Yes, it will push them through a crisis sooner or later.
Yes, Moon Saturn is kind of like a really good combination for detaching, right? Really detaching. And once you understand what Saturn is doing to the Moon, right? Because it's not, they're starving each other, right? They're enemies towards each other. I mean, right? So, but once you understand what Saturn is actually trying to tell you, then there can be a great healing with this combination, right? With all the difficult combinations, there is the greatest potential for healing, right? The greatest weaknesses can become the greatest strengths, and that's, I see it happening all the time, especially in after 30, like Moon Saturn. It's very deep, probing people, and they learn so much on an emotional level, and they're able to make better choices and to be fulfilled in relationship
experience by first getting hurt, because Saturn is about getting experience the hard way, and then they can start the healing process.
Exactly. So we have that going on. Then we also don't have any planets in the fourth from the ascendant, and we have the Sun and Venus in the fourth from the Moon. So Venus is a benefic that's going to help out. It's going to create some possibilities to be receptive, and the Sun is going to make the person wanting to prove herself a little more, to get validated again. Okay, then we look at Trim Samsha, we see a Scorpio ascendant, which is an even sign. Then the Moon is in an odd sign, but it's with Mercury, a benefic, so that's going to be really good. And then the fourth from Scorpio has Mercury and Moon in there, so that's one of the two. Well, it's a waning moon. It's not really a benefic moon, but moon is never really going to be a serious problem. It's not a malefic like Saturn or Rahu are.
Oh, but look in the fourth from the Moon.
But in the fourth from the Moon, it's like a mixed bag here. We have Venus in its own sign, which is really good, but then we also have Rahu and Ketu. And that's definitely going to create some confusion, and will make it harder to get in contact with that receptivity, that feeling.
And I just want to quickly point something to people, because a lot of people use the circular chart and they're not familiar with this one. And your ascendant is here, and first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. A lot of people are much more familiar with the circular chart, so I want to show them how to do it there. So say if your Moon is here, you count the signs, not houses. You count the sign, and say this is in Taurus, the Moon. You count 4 signs from Taurus, which leads to 1, 2, 3, 4, which leads to, what is it? Leo, for example. And you check if there is any planets here. Say if we have Mars, it's a malefic. We said that such people will be very kind of emotionally more reactive and wanting things to have it their own way always. Yeah. Or you have to check from the ascendant 1, 2, 3, 4. Check from the ascendant, the 4th house, the 4th sign, if there are any malefics which can detract from ability to know your needs and what is good for you and create.
And the Moon is more important, right?
Okay, so the 4th from the Moon is more important than the 4th from the ascendant.
Definitely.
Okay. So in the circular chart, it moves like that, the houses, in this direction. In the charts Levi is showing the signs move in the opposite direction. They show the same things, just in different, with a different way. So you can check it in your Western chart. You don't have to. We look with tropical zodiac. So, I don't know. Was it showing me? Are you seeing?
Are you seeing the chart right now?
Yes.
Okay. We can put it on the transits animated here to see the wheel perspective. I was just
yes, exactly.
flash, but
Yes.
yeah, you can see it here,
And in
right?
fourth from the moon is Sagittarius, where you have Venus and the Sun. So one malefic, one benefic, but the benefic is stronger. Always, no, the Sun. It's okay.
You
But
see
the
it?
moon is in the same sign with Saturn. You can see it there in Virgo, even though they're far away, but still.
Yeah, so moon is here. 1, 2, 3. It's far away, but yeah, exactly. So put it back. Okay, so should go to another chart.
Yes.
We have some other. We can practice a bit like that. So what we see here is Gemini Ascendant, so it's an odd sign, and the moon is in an even sign, so it's a mixed bag, right? So it's gonna be mixed, and then there's no planets in the well. Let's look at the aspects to the moon and the aspects to the first house. Put it here. So the aspects to the moon, there's well, it's
Kind of equal.
aspecting, quite strongly. Saturn is also aspecting quite strongly, but there's also Mercury and Venus aspecting. So it's a little more negative than positive, but it's it's so. It's not a super comfortable moon, but it's not the worst situation either. And then if we look at the influences to the first house cusp, it's the Sun, and Saturn is aspecting here strongly. But we also have Mercury and Venus aspecting. So it's a little more negative than positive. So it's so. And then look at the planets in the fourth from the ascendant. There's no planets in the fourth from the moon here. We have Mars and Saturn. So that's going to be very difficult.
Okay, so we have two difficult planets from the moon.
Yes, that's going to be difficult for that person, and it was definitely. All these are charts we're looking at. These are people that have been divorced at least one time, so they had some challenges with respect to relationships. If we look at the Trim Samcha chart, we see the moon is in a masculine sign, and the ascendant is also in a masculine sign. There's no planets in the fourth from the ascendant, and there's no planets in the fourth from the moon. So again, masculine geared. So a little harder to be the woman, right, in a relationship, and to receive what she needs. And you can also, look at the Navamsha chart if you have it available.
But just being Mars and Saturn in the fourth from the moon in the fourth sign, that's painful.
Yeah, that's going to be painful. Again, Mars being, too strong, too forceful. It can be too forceful in the fourth, so too opinionated, too depending on, too strongly opinionated. And then Saturn is going to create some, self-esteem issues, or make it a little more heavy to get in contact with lightness and
mood. And I find that people with Saturn affecting the fourth house from ascendant or from moon, they find it hard to forgive and let go. They keep more pain within emotionally for longer.
Yeah,
they react, of course, triggered even from the smallest thing from a place of pain, while someone who doesn't have Saturn there, they'll be like, they'll shrug it off, not even pay attention. But someone with Saturn there, because maybe they've been hurt in the past, usually earlier in life, family or whatever, past lifetime, they'll just have this strong pain reaction to hurts, to as well to emotional situations. And it's like hard to heal because Saturn takes longer.
It's also, it takes things like the fourth, as we mentioned, is below, right? Is what is deep within, and so when you have like Saturn in the fourth house or something, it can be, they suffer more internally and keep it in, not really finding a way to express that. I think when there's Saturn problems going on, it's very good to express it and to kind of really nail it down, to clearly see it, what is happening, right? But sometimes it's things become emotionally so painful that it's hard to do that. So yeah, Saturn in the fourth can be challenging, like Rahu. Like these two in astrology are the big troublemakers. They can be the big troublemakers for sure.
Saturn and the North Node, yeah.
Mm.
Because the North Node is things we haven't learned to do, basically, isn't it? In this incarnation, things we kind of suck at still.
Yes. Yeah, Rahu just never lets you off the hook, right? It's can be very erratic. It's deceptive, but it is the way to go. It's a super, like you mentioned, it can be a super interesting placement as well. Rahu in the fourth, very difficult in the initial stage, but a person can learn so much with this placement. Like all the difficult placements are really good placements,
and they make for very interesting people as well. Very colorful people. Those difficult positions, definitely.
Yes, for sure.
Well, maybe we can very quickly, I don't know for men, but for women, what to look very quickly to mention for men when they're choosing a man, to see if he's relationship material, easy
Sure.
or not.
Okay, just one sec. I'm having trouble with the screens here.
Or do you prefer to do it in another interview?
What do you think? You think we should?
Yes, because it's been an hour and a half, and very few people watch a video of 3 hours.
Oh, it's already an hour and a half. Yeah, so let's do another video then on.
Yeah, so this one is for women. This video, girls, was for you to check, or for guys that are trying to figure out if their woman is more pained or no. It's gonna be, if she's gonna be easier for relationships or no. And
yes.
she'll need more time and patience and support.
Yeah, and it's it's only it's an astrological assessment. It's just one of the things that seem to work, and don't get too stressed out on it. Because you can learn from it, I think, right?
Yeah, and age helps with everything. Those planets mature at certain ages, so it gets better after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
So,
thank you so much, Levi. Do you want to summarize something or conclude in some way?
well, I think what did we say? I think it's important for yeah. You mean we can look at the ascendant. You can look at the moon, right? You can look at the benefics aspects to the moon. You can we went over all. We went over all it, right? All over it, but it's getting pretty late here for me, so I'm just kind of losing my thread. But I don't know.
If you
I
want
think
Levi, yeah, he can walk you through your chastity yogas and healthy relationship yogas, or how you can overcome them. There are remedies as well. You can recommend remedies if women come to consult you, or men for their relationship issues. You can recommend how they can soften some of those difficult influences, can't you?
I think it's it can sound a little harsh, and also the classics when they the text can be kind of really harsh, and it's just a way of, probably if you have Rahu in the fourth from your moon, you're going to definitely experience this, right? There's not going to be a way around this, and so it's just be open to what the horoscope or the astrologer has to tell you in respect to these things. And once you understand the pattern that you're in, right, that you get stuck in or something, it's always like that, then it can be like shocking, but after the shock you just understand, you learn, and you can completely change. As we mentioned in the beginning, the karma is not going to make you happy or unhappy. You have your own free will to change or to cope with whatever is coming your way, right? Sometimes it's going to be good things, sometimes it's going to be difficult things, but I think in the end, if you feel I don't know, if you try to accept or open up for the experience, right? And for, I mean, in terms of, when you go to an astrologer, right, and these things come out, it doesn't have, it's not a dramatic thing. It's just be open for the resistance, or the, if you feel like shock or like, no, this is not true, just, you know, go within and talk to yourself and say, okay, is this really what is this my true nature? Is this really who I am, you know? Or is it just some tendency that I have developed? Because we all do. You know, it's like Ernst says, childhood is designed to screw us, right? So then from that, we have our parents, we have all sorts of problems with our parents, and then we grow up, we attract the mother or the father figure, and it's so complicated. So we learn, right? We learn to relate, we learn to engage in relationships. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's hectic and chaotic, but who cares? You know, we're on it, we're on the ride, and astrology is just a way of, you know, playing the game and getting some more insight also in how, you know, things are moving in our lives. And, you know, in my horoscope, personal horoscope, I have a lot of, like, if you would look at my horoscope, you would think, gosh, I had a lot of relationship stuff going on. And you know, so initially you shock, you know, you think, okay, this is happening, but after a while you have to endure it, right? You have to go through it, and then hopefully you will attract better relationships. And I think using astrology and learning about astrology definitely brought me in contact with my masculine side as a man, and so I understand a lot more what a woman needs, right? And also what I need myself to be in a healthy relationship or to relate in a healthy manner. And yeah, so I think that would be my conclusion.
Thank you so much. I'm so looking forward to for you to share with us the masculine yogas for a man, so men can look within and see what they're maybe not doing right, and that's why they're attracting relationships that are not so positive. But I myself, exactly the same way, I have quite a few difficulties in my relationship with those yogas, which reflected in a few marriages, obviously, and lots of relationships, and learning the hard way. But here I am, finally in a very happy relationships. Of course, it's never fully smooth, but basically, astrology brings you awareness, and you become aware of your repeating patterns and issues, and you consciously start to you know, to implement the advice, and you start seeing miracles happen. So you can really transform yourself. So the first steps are with recognizing the pattern, and that's what astrology helps us with. So thank you so much, Levi. You can get, guys, readings with Levi. I'll put a link below. You see, he's very knowledgeable. He'll walk you through Vedic astrology. He uses tropical zodiac the way ancient Vedic astrologers actually also used tropical zodiac. It wasn't sidereal because they used the seasons according to translations directly for ancient texts for the zodiac. So thank you so much, Levi, again, and looking forward to having you again for the next part about how healthy can a man do a relationship.
Yes, exactly. Look at capability yogas, right? How capable a man is. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, wonderful. Have a great week ahead, and thank you, everyone. Bye bye.